Hello Saints, welcome into another video here near the middle of the week. Wanted to just take a few minutes to look at the last part of James chapter 3. And he begins this section, it's paragraph I guess, and in our Bibles it's verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? That's a key question that he asked. By his good conduct, let him show his works and the meekness of wisdom. It's an interesting statement there, meekness of wisdom. Then he goes on to say, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. Of course, it's human nature for us to want what the other person has. He doesn't just say jealousy, he says bitter jealousy, which means we're overcome with jealousy. And he says bitter jealousy and selfish ambition, a disease that we constantly battle, even on this side of the cross, is that of self-sufficiency and selfish ambition. We feel like that if we do not promote ourselves, no one will. And we feel like we must prop ourselves up or we cannot exist. And James, who is the brother of our Lord, teaches us here that that's not the wisdom that we're looking for, bitter jealousy and selfish ambition. I can tell you that anytime we occupy ourselves with looking out for number one is the first person who will suffer. So jealousy, selfish ambition, we need to leave that behind. He goes on to say, for this is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but this wisdom, the wisdom that would cause us to be jealous of another person's successes or possessions, or that would cause us to be selfishly ambitious, self-driven. He says that wisdom is earthly, it's unspiritual, and then he says it's demonic. In other words, it has its source in a demonic realm. And who else would like to cause us to go a different route? Who else would like to cause us to depart from what we know to be the faith and to give ourselves to some selfish ambition on our part, to give ourselves to exercising what we think is self-sufficiency. He goes on to say, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. Thus, as I said a few moments ago, whenever we look out for number one is the first one that suffers, because there will be disorder in every vile practice. The pattern should always be that we're looking out for others first, looking out for the interests of others first. I know that's hard to do, and I know that's contrary to the human being, and it's definitely contrary to the flesh that we deal with every day, and fleshly desires and fleshly thoughts. But James is saying to us there is a wisdom that comes down from above. This is not it. This is not the wisdom that we should seek that comes down from above, that leads us to self-sufficiency. He says, but the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason or reasonable, full of mercy. We've talked about mercy recently, and good fruits, impartial and sincere. So if we are departing from self-sufficiency, if we are disregarding selfish ambition, recognizing that there's no future in that, there's no peace in that, as James says, will only create disorder and every vile practice. If we understand that, then we want the wisdom that comes from God. And understand, there's a verse in Corinthians, I quoted it last Sunday, verse in Corinthians where Paul writes, "For who sees anything different in you?" Listen to this part. This is 1 Corinthians 4:7, by the way. "What do you have that you did not receive? If then you received it, why do you boast as if you did not receive it?" In other words, why do you boast as if you created it yourself? What do you have? Let me ask you this. What do you have? Gifts, possessions, successes, family. What do you have that you did not receive? Well, that's almost a rhetorical question because everything we have, we received from God. You say, well, I got me a good job. Well, if God's not involved, you wouldn't have got that job. You wouldn't have been able to keep that job. What do you have that you did not receive? In other words, self-sufficiency is not the answer here. The wisdom that we're talking about does not manifest in our being ambitious in a selfish manner. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious and trying to be the best you can at what you do, but knowing that God has put you in that place and knowing that what you have, you've received, and knowing that whatever successes you realize in whatever field or avenue you're seeking cannot happen without the grace and the power of God. So what have you got that you didn't receive? But he says this wisdom that we're looking for, I'm going to read it again because it's such a good description. This wisdom is from above. It's not demonic. It's not unspiritual. It's not earthly, but it's from above, and it's pure. It's peaceable. It's gentle. It's open to reason. Boy, do we need in this day and time the ability to be open to reason. People cannot have a discussion. People cannot have a dialogue, especially if they're opposing opinions. You can't have a back and forth. This is the way it is. This is the way I think it is, and I don't even want to hear what you got to say. Open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And James wraps up that section, that paragraph, with this statement. He says, "And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." A harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Do you want to harvest in righteousness in your life? Well, that's almost a dumb question. Of course we do. How do we get there? Well, we disregard self-sufficiency. We recognize that whatever we have, we've received from God, and whatever we get will have been received from God. It might come through a different avenue. It might come from someone may walk up to you and give you something, but even then, we must credit God's provision with that. And so, disregarding self-sufficiency, disregarding selfish ambition, self-promoting ambition, and embracing a wisdom that comes from above, that says other person, other people, the interests of other people comes first and foremost. I can tell you that if you put others first, you will be much better off and you'll be much happier. So I pray that you reap a harvest of righteousness as you are sowing in peace, and be one of those who make peace. And that we all remember, what do you have that you did not receive from God? The obvious answer, nothing. Now you have yourself a great week, and yes, go out there and act like somebody. Good day.